Hi folks, and welcome back. We often talk about skills and knowledge getting rusty over time. It's quite a nice little analogy because it suggests that while it was once there, it's essentially fallen into disrepair and needs either cleaning up or fixing, essentially. And it's very illustrative, but I think it kind of works at a deeper level as well, because whether it's skills or knowledge or an engine rebuild, you need to have some of the same approaches and you need to have some of the same things in mind. First off, you need to have the right tools. If you go into a job and you haven't got the right tools, you're either going to get stuck or you're going to end up breaking something. And a broken bolt is the difference between a 20-minute job and a 2-day ordeal. The same kind of goes with education though. If you're trying to work with learners, or if you're trying to improve yourself, if you haven't got the right tools to do that, at some point you're either going to get stuck or you're actually going to do damage, because you're going to end up creating falsehoods, misunderstandings, and certainly if you're trying to teach other people, you can end up leading them completely astray. It's not just about having the tools, you also have to know how to use them. You might go, right, okay, that's the bolt that needs to come off, let's get to work. And before you know it, you've got a very damaged piece of machinery and a very expensive problem. But also, it's kind of the same with when you're educating someone and or yourself, in that if you go in there without stopping to assess the situation and think, okay, actually, as I start trying to move this nut, it's not really loosening up, I'll just take a different approach. If you just keep going at it, it can end up causing damage. And actually I work with quite a lot of learners who have had that, where they've been taught initially by someone who has, often years ago, who has gone at it without the sensitivity, and it's caused a lot of angst and problems and damage, frankly. See, what they could have really done with at that point is something to help with those rusty skills, help loosen things up, and essentially provide a bit of assistance. Much like good old WD-40 or other penetrating fluids can help to loosen up a bolt that's kind of stuck and you think, well, I'm not really sure why, but it is. Learning support is really good for those learners who are they're kind of struggling with some of these elements. Rather than just applying more force with the tools, you just take a bit of time, and it might require just a little bit, like a little squirt, or it might require a full soaking for a long time, but it helps to loosen everything up. And you could extend the analogy further. If you've got, say, like a cylinder head, it's got several bolts, all of those will be different levels of stuck or stiff or fragile even. And going at each one gently, being careful, using the right technique, using the right support to go with it, you can make sure that the job is done correctly. And so, yeah, I think the analogy works really well. However, there's another element to this as well. You see, things get rusty often because they're not looked after properly. And it's all very well and good if you repair a piece of machinery or put a piece of machinery together. If you don't look after it, it's left out in the rain, or in terms of your skills, if they're just not looked after, or someone else's for that matter, then you're just going to end up having to do more work not very far down the line. And that's why, whenever I'm working with anyone, the first question I ask is very much like the first questions that I ask with a piece of machinery. With a piece of machinery I go, right, okay, where has it been stored? When was it last serviced? What's been done to look after it? And the first thing that I do when I'm working with a learner is, okay, when did you learn this? How has it been developed? And beyond that into pastoral care. And this is where I think there is a big misunderstanding, and that is that pastoral care is somehow different to to teaching and to education, whereas actually I think it is one of the most important elements. Because much like if you care for a piece of machinery, if you clean it, if you look after it, if you maintain it, if you look after a person, if you maintain their skills, but also just check in on them and make sure that everything's okay, that's how you prevent damage from being done. It's how you prevent things getting rusty. It's how you spot if something's not right. And if you try and separate that out, it's like saying, right, okay, I've repaired all this machinery, great. Leave it be and just let it get rusty again. But that's my take on it anyway. Just some thoughts, as ever, and I'd be interested in yours. Does this analogy work? Now, do you think that it's a bit off in any places and needs a little bit of tightening and polishing? Or do you work in a different setting or study in a different setting and think, actually, yeah, this applies to my line as well? I'd love to know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Any questions and comments below, and see you next time.